just to understand a bit on the windfall profits and what they actually are. So they are profits that companies make due to like extraordinary events beyond their own efforts. So um, an event like geopolitical instability, such as the war. So the recent conflict in with the war on Iran and heightened tensions in the Middle East, it created these fears of disruption to the global oil supplies, and then that caused the oil prices to rise. And as a result, the major IOCs, the international oil companies like TotalEnergies, they benefited from the higher oil prices without actually putting in the effort. So without actually producing more oil or becoming more efficient or anything like that. They just earned more revenue because of the market price of oil increased. And the profits that Total put up today, it highlighted the injustice of the fossil fuel industry, essentially, because as it was mentioned that there was a like a over 100% increase as compared to the same period last year, and that's driven by higher oil prices. And the irony is that while these oil companies enjoy the unexpected gains and profits, ordinary people experience the opposites. Like what Rukana mentioned, higher fuel prices and energy prices, the cost of living. And then also it's, communities, bearing the brunt of the climate crisis, of the costs of floods and droughts and heat waves and pollution. And this raises now that fundamental question of who actually benefits from these fossil fuel developments in Africa. The developments that they say that will bring Africa out of energy poverty or, increase our economic development or whatever else false narrative they bring in to bring in these developments in Africa. And the issue around ECOP, it reflects this imbalance that while these multinational oil companies earn the substantial profits, communities that live alongside these developments, bear the risks of displacement and environmental degradation and their loss of livelihoods and the climate impacts. And at the same time, governments also provide generous tax incentives and concessions to attract these investments. So the public may receive less revenue while assuming the greater environmental and social costs. So this is why we're actually calling out governments to essentially make polluters pay, and this is based on the polluters pay principle, that these companies that are generating enormous profits from fossil fuels should not be allowed to privatize the gains while socializing the costs. So that extraordinary windfall profits that they make and beyond should contribute to essentially funding the climate crisis. So loss and damage, just disaster recovery, adaptation. The compensation should support these affected communities in need instead of leaving taxpayers and vulnerable communities to shoulder the burden of the climate crisis. Now, this is not a get out of jail free card for the IOCs, for IOCs like Total Energies and the other big ones, because we still are in a climate crisis due to the burning of fossil fuels. So we need to transition to cleaner energy. And that's what corporate accountability is about ensuring that companies are responsible not only to their shareholders, but also to the people and the ecosystems affected by their operations. So a fair coordinated windfall profits tax is one of the ways to help finance the just transition to renewable energy, to also strengthen the resilience of climate impacts and support communities already paying the price for that. Ultimately, the question is not whether Africa should pursue development. Yes, we should, but development that is sustainable, development that creates permanent jobs for locals, that does not harm the ecosystem and the communities that rely on it for a livelihood. So, we have to ask from these developments is who carries the risks, who pays when things go wrong, and making polluters pay is about correcting that imbalance and ensuring that those who profit the most from it, the fossil fuel companies, contribute to repairing the damage that they've caused. Thank you. Back to you, Abid.